what great news as far as I'm concerned. Net zero is gone from the coalition policy thing. It should never have been there in the first place. It was a ridiculous thing to go to to begin with under Scott Morrison. Peter Dutton should have scrapped it. He would have won the election had he done so. Now the Libs are back in the race. Rita, am I being too optimistic?
No, I think you're right. This is a consequential issue, and finally the Australian electorate has a choice again. For several years now, 2 federal elections, they didn't have a choice. And politically, the Liberals are the ones who suffered there. And I think the Australian public has obviously suffered because we've embraced these stupid, economically destructive policies that are sending our power prices up, that are weakening the grid, and we're finally having some debate, some real debate. I don't know how it took so long, why they were dragged kicking and screaming to this position, but they're there now. The whole sort of half-pregnant thing with Paris, I think that confuses the matter. But one of the reasons they embraced net zero was in the hopes that it would remove climate hysteria, climate change as an election issue. And it did the absolute opposite. All it did was see them play the left's issue by the left's rules, and they're always going to lose in that game. So now we've got them in a position where they can argue about energy policy. They can say in a cost of living crisis, why are we not prioritising cheap, reliable coal as opposed to intermittent renewable power and having to update the grid every 5 seconds? So I think there is a lot of upside here. My worry is the smaller Liberals who might be white-anting from within, who don't actually want this policy. And certainly Sussan Ley, it's not a policy that she led. It's one she had to accept because the party room was overwhelmingly for dumping it. But how is that going to work? How are you going to have a leader who doesn't actually fundamentally believe in this policy prosecuting the case for the Australian public?
Well, we'll chat to Sarah Henderson shortly, Caroline, and we'll ask her that very point. Caroline, what did you make of the week?
Well, I don't know that a lot of even the small L Liberals, the moderates, the bedwetters truly believe in their heart of hearts about net zero. They're just scared of losing their seats to Teals and to the left. So I think the conviction wasn't there for a lot of people, including for Sussan Ley. They're just worried about their political future. And that's why I think we're stuck in this situation where they won't leave the Paris Agreement. Now, I do think it might help them a little bit to say, oh, at least we still have Paris. You know,
I don't think it will. I actually think that is the sort of thinking that they have embraced throughout, where they think, oh, we're going to appease the people who are really energised about this issue. The people who are energised about that issue ain't voting for the Liberals. Doesn't matter if they sign up to net zero by next week. They're not voting for them. They know that it's Labor, it's the left, the Greens, who are far more enthusiastic about this policy. So the people who are energised, I don't think you're going to be fooling them by having this Paris thing. But I think they had to do it to appease the MPs. And how much of that, Caroline, do you think is them worried about losing their seat, and how much is it the pressure they're having from certain groups who are profiting from the subsidies and everything else that comes with renewables?
Well, I think, and it's not just the pressure from lobby groups and activists, but from the media. So much of the media outside of Sky News has treated this decision as if it's a piece of lunacy, instead of seeing, as Andrew Neil pointed out, that this is the direction that most of the world is going in. I mean, Donald Trump pulled out of Paris. That kind of makes it pointless to start with. Exactly. So that, I mean, it is kind of a bit of paper. It's a bit of symbolism at this point. It's a political agreement. But look, I take your point, Rita, because if they were to be truly strong about it and want to make a real point of difference, they would pull out of it and they would say, we are fully on board with putting the cost of living, power prices and energy security above this ridiculous climate ideology.
We're going to talk more about Paris later on in Emissions Impossible. But I just want to play a couple of the bits. Of course, as Rita said, it's the left-wingers, then, as Caroline said, the bedwetters who are jumping up and down. It's those who either are in the Labor Party or should have been in the Labor Party all along, who are the ones who are kicking up most of the fuss. What a surprise. The ghost reappeared. Malcolm Turnbull jumped up from wherever he hides these days. Have a listen.
You know, with the Liberal Party room, they've got the memory of goldfish and the dining habits of piranhas. They forgot, they seem to just keep on forgetting and making the same mistake again and again. But I don't want to sound like an echo for Albanese, but what he said to you about the energy economics is absolutely right, and anyone in the industry knows that.
Oh.
What a farce. You can imagine Malcolm sitting there. Lucy, I've got goldfish. What can I put against goldfish? Piranhas, let's do that. I mean, yes, you do sound like an echo of Anthony Albanese, because you are an echo of Anthony Albanese. Why the Liberals haven't got rid of Turnbull, kick him out of the party? Anyway, it's not only Turnbull who was up there, Chris Bowen, and I reckon the Labor Party now suddenly realise they have a fight on their hands and they're getting scared because they've lost the smug arrogance and they're now turning nasty. Jim Chalmers was the worst, but have a listen first to Chris Bowen.
So their plan is a recipe for chaos. It's a recipe for higher emissions, of course. It's also a recipe for higher prices. So we didn't seek this debate. I would prefer a degree of bipartisanship about these matters, but we won't be walking away from it.
Sussan Ley has caved to the smirking crackpots and cookers in her own party. Now, this is not some temporary phase that they're going through. This is not some temporary lurch to the right. Over recent years, this coalition has become a party of extremists, and Australians would pay a very hefty price for that extremism.
The Liberals' decision to walk away from net zero is not just about politics. Net zero means lower household energy costs because our country's making the big investment in renewables we know we need to make.
Hilarious. No, I'm sorry. Anyone who has an electricity bill knows that net zero means higher electricity bills. Got that wrong. But apparently we're all cookers and crackpots. Thanks, Jim Chalmers.